Hello humans. You might remember a while back we created an aerial shot for a film set during an RAF bombing mission in World War II. Now this was really a test to see what we could achieve using cheap, practical methods. Now the filmmakers want to see if we can pull off convincing plane-to-plane style shots using miniatures, including a sequence involving one of the Lancasters getting shot down. And to do this, we're building a 1/5 scale wing section with some pyrotechnics and smoke effects, and shooting a 1/32 scale miniature with a motion control camera system and model mover, all running through Dragon Frame. Shall we? A Memory Ode is currently in pre-production. It's a story of remembrance of British Bomber Command and how the events and personal stories of the past can connect with the younger generation of today. The film predominantly follows a Lancaster flight crew during a nighttime bombing mission over Germany, and we're here to help bring those harrowing moments to the screen. For more information on the film and its fundraiser, follow the links in the video description. While we're taking this opportunity to experiment with a few different setups, our hero shot is of a Lancaster to our hero's flank taking heavy fire. The fuel line is ruptured and the engine explodes, spewing flames and smoke. As we're shooting our pyro and smoke effects as elements, they need to be surrounding something that is as close to full scale as possible. So we're building the wing section that sustains all the damage at around 5:1 scale. We found a schematic online for a radio-controlled Lancaster, and then we scaled it up to fit across a number of A0 prints, and then cut these out and used them as templates for our build. If we had a bigger budget, we'd just send these straight off to be laser cut, but instead, we're spending time dollars on this one. JP has designed the engine templates to be constructed like a 3D puzzle. Once I've cut the skeleton pieces, he then builds the carcass surrounding it using fiberglass and preps it for pyro. He installs a gas pipe where the exhaust pipes would usually be, along with nest sections for powder-based explosions, smoke effects and wire wool. He then lines the exterior with metal tape for better fireproofing. This can then be painted black with a matte fire-retardant paint. Meanwhile, I've been building the wing section. Now included in the templates are a number of 50mm circles. One set is there to accommodate a scaffold pole to give the wing strength and rigidity. The second set will allow for a gas feed and an air feed for our pyro. Once all our pieces are cut, I fix them to the batten with wood glue, using the schematic to make sure I'm fixing the ribs at the correct distance. The scaff pole also helps to keep the batten straight, with the help of a couple of chocks. We use 3mm ply for the underside skin of the wing. Then we cut out a section for the engine and fix it in place. With our gas and air tubes fixed inside the engine, we run them along the scaff. With the internals sorted, we can skin the top side. As the leading edge of the wing is essentially a compound curve, we needed something very flexible but semi-rigid, so I picked up some lino or linoleum with a black underside, cut it to shape and fixed it to the ribs with screws. In all honesty, I had tried a couple of other materials before I came to the lino solution. Bad times. We black out the surrounding area. Remember, this is an elements shoot, so we don't actually want to see the wing itself. It's just the contours of the engine in the wing that we need for the fire and the smoke to billow around. Before we finish fixing the lino proper, we conduct a test to check it can withstand the heat of our gas feed. As you can see, we're blasting air at the wing with a couple of powerful fans to create the necessary wind speed. We then glued the front edge to the underside of the ply using gaffer tape to hold it in place while it dries. We also sprayed fire retardant liquid across the surfaces just to help them hold up for more takes. So JP's created a previs in 3D, which is great because it enables us to kind of figure out exactly what we want our shot to be. And we're using that as a lineup tool, which is really handy because obviously the wing and the engine are to scale, the previs is to scale. We find the exact angle that we want. We're shooting the elements first, which is, an interesting way of doing things. We haven't shot a miniature yet, so we're actually going to shoot miniature to match the elements. So what we've got here is a still of the previs at the angle that we want. We get that angle right, mixing with our still from the previs to our wing section. Once we've got that absolutely kind of nailed in terms of the right angle, then we know for sure that all of our elements that we shoot are going to match the exact angle that we want for that final shot. But it's a noodle baker trying to get these things lined up because there are just so many axes that we're trying to line up here. But I think we're close.
Fumex. king size smoke pellets. So for some of our smoke passes, we're going to be using pyrotechnic smoke, which is very basic smoke pellets, the type that you'd use to check airflow through chimneys and air conditioning systems. And the reason why they're really good for this, they give us a nice kind of volumetric smoke that looks hot, because it is actually a pyrotechnic smoke, and hopefully we get lots of turbulent detail in the smoke once it's been blown through our engine.
JP and I run through a little safety briefing where we go through the plan, what to expect, possible issues, and agree the procedures should anything go wrong.
Okay, so we're trying it all at once.
We'll see what we get.
Yeah. We'll see what we get. Cameras at speed. Nice. You want me to cut? Yeah. That was a nice little puff though.
The fans are making remote ignition tricky, so JP uses a blowtorch to ignite the gas bar. Once lit, he can then use our old pal, the air pump, to blast air into the cavity holding our pyro powder.
That was bigger than I expected. Ooh, yeah, perfect exposure. Pack it in there. Yeah, flab.
Right, okay.
Yeah, nice line on the wing. We've ramped up the shutter speed 1/500th for these blasts so that we can get them nice and sharp. Always add motion blur if we need to.
And then we hit a snag.
Oh, it's gone out. Oh, it's gone again.
When we did our test,
We may have burned more gas during our tests than expected.
Yeah.
feels like we probably used more than we thought
Right.
in that test.
But JP always comes equipped with many ways of setting fire to things. So naturally we've got some alternative fuels. They're just a little dirtier.
Oh, that's really gonna f*** it up. Nice.
Oh, nice.
That's a really good one, actually.
Good trail.
Yeah. Less kind of. Whoa.
Yeah. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, that's that.
We also add some fuel to the wing as though the fuel has been sprayed across it from the rupture.
There she goes. Yeah, that looks great. It's really, really bad. Oh no, Japes. Texture. It would do this. Or something. Oh, I'm looking forward to the wire wool as well.
Yeah, bugs them out.
Sure. Everything. 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 Hey! Cut there. Cams at speed.
We do a clean wire wool pass. Then some smoke passes.
Cams at speed.
To mix things up even more, we used some alcohol-based fuel over the wing, which gave us the option of spreading our fire element further.
Hey!
It gives us the real look of a burning liquid fuel coming from ruptured points in the fuel tanks located in the wing. And the floor.
Okay. Okay. Oh, we are dangerous, dangerous individuals. We probably need to stand outside for a minute.
We use the fans to clear the room and go get some air. And then we review what we've got in the can.
Yeah.
Next, we want to shoot a head-on angle to give us more options in post, which means more blackout. We run all those same passes in our second angle. Engine fire, explosions, wire wool, and smoke.
Bearing in mind that like this one's going to be a bit of a way back, so we need to see it. You're better than this.
Upping the ante wherever we can.
Yeah, that's great.
And absolutely destroying our build.
soot everywhere. Look at you, darling, you've got covered in soot.
Although JP did a great job of making a total mess of the studio floor, it was the right call to use predominantly powder-based fuel for our explosions, as they created zero residual burn to our floor or risked raining burning fuel on our fabric drape that was in such close proximity.
We've definitely killed it.
It's still holding its shape.
It's kind of beautiful, actually. I mean, it's it's different. But yeah, it's held together remarkably well, I would say. I think we can be proud of that.
Anyone else getting alien vibes? I also built some basic shapes so we could shoot some more generic elements so that we could use those wherever we might need. Along with some separate smoke elements against the white wall to get some dirtier looking smoke trails. The beauty of having a 3D previs is that we can now take all the passes and put together a post-viz to see how our various pyro passes are going to look once we apply them to our miniature shot. Although we shot our elements with a static camera, we can of course track them to a moving object and even warp the angle of our elements to a degree in order to enable us to shoot the miniature with some nice camera moves. You'd never want to push such angular warps too far, so our moves will be limited. But in this case, we know that these bombers were enormous, and their movements were far from dynamic, so an elaborate and dynamic camera move would be incongruous anyway. With all our elements in the can, it's miniature time.
Humans, spotted bother. Caught a packet on the last run and had to ditch the old girl, sausage side. If I'm ever going to get out of here, I'm going to have to drop some coin in the Reich pockets, if you know what I'm saying. Now, the Resistance can organise a diversion of monies through the boffins at Patreon. So, if you want to see us back up in the clouds again, I suggest you hit the link in the description. Tally-ho.
This is a 132 scale model, the biggest commercially available. Ideally, we'd want to go larger to harness more detail and increase the sense of scale, but this is a modestly budgeted short film, so the director himself purchased this kit, built it, rigged it with a few motors to give us some moving parts, and had this wonderful paint job done. The filmmakers have also secured one of the only 2 running Lancasters remaining in the UK, and it is the mission of the Panton family at the Lincolnshire Aviation Heritage Centre to restore this old warbird back to airworthiness. And it's the filmmakers' intention to raise awareness of the museum, their cause, and a wider message of remembrance. To complete the film, they need to raise funding, and this is where you can help. Visit the link in the description below to find out more and donate.
So we've got everything set up. We're actually running through a move right now. We've got some time because we're doing long exposures and that stuff takes a little while. So what have we got here? So we've got our Kessler Cine shooter on the motion controlled dolly. We're using a rail system. And then as you can see, we've got our Lancaster on a model mover. Now it's moving very incrementally slowly as it takes photographs. And essentially what we're creating is an image sequence that allows us to stop really far down so that we can get really deep depth of field on our miniature, make it look big. And then we're doing long exposures. And so what we're doing right now is our blue screen pass to create a matte. Once we've got our shot, we'll then bring all of the lighting down for the blue screen and we'll put our key light on and then we'll run that exact same pass for that. And then essentially we use the matte to remove the background and then use the key light for the lighting. We're also aiming to do some extra light passes as well, where we'll be introducing some warmth from the burning city underneath, but also we're looking to localize some light around the wing section so we get some kind of interactive light, because we're going to composite our pyrotechnic elements onto the wing section of the model. That should be lighting up the wing. So we're going to do a pass where we'll start getting some light dancing across the wing section. As you can see, we've also had to make a kind of separate blue screen to cover up our model mover. It's a sort of a bit of a tricksy setup that we've got here. Because it's mounted from behind and it's sort of sat on top of the platform of the model mover, we've had to create this separate blue screen to completely cover the model mover. We've made a couple of them and we've sort of got to the point where we've realized how big this thing needs to be in order to completely cover all of the Lancaster, particularly the rotor blades, because the first version that we built actually was a bit too small and there was a clear line in the blue screen and that was going to take some of the detail away from our spinning rotor blades.
The beauty of motion control is that it enables perfectly repeatable camera and model movements, which means we can repeat our shots with different lighting conditions and effects. It also means that we can shoot at whatever speed we want. We can plot a shot with everything integrated and shoot one frame at a time, as you would in animation, like they did in Star Wars back in the day. And by using a digital stills camera, we can shoot long exposures, which not only give us the light levels we need without using massive lights, but it also gives us the sharpest, high-resolution raw images, incorporating multiple lighting passes, giving us more apparent dynamic range than any digital cinema camera on the market. And this little one's nearly 20 years old. In order to plot and control all these different channels of movement, we're using Dragon Frame, the industry standard for shoot, move, shoot motion control. Once plotted, we can play the shot back in real time to see how it's going to look and make any necessary tweaks. We recently posted an episode as an introduction to motion control, so if this is floating your boat and getting you interested, you can just head over to the channel and you can find it.
Now there's obviously another element to this whole setup that has us particularly excited, and that is that we are using rear projection for one of our passes, largely so that we can get some nice action through the glass of the cockpits. It's also going to give us a nice wrap of light as well, based on whatever background we're using. We're not going to use it for the final background, it's really there just for those lighting additions. Now, this is a particularly impressive piece of rear projection material. It's actually called OptiBlack 2.0, I believe. And I want to say a massive thank you to Philip Contaglaga, who we reached out to when we discovered his amazing YouTube channel, and he is a projection specialist. He's involved in theatre productions and like opera and art installations, anything requiring projection, the man's involved. So if you want to get into that, go to his YouTube channel. I also had a really wonderful conversation with Philip a little while back, which we haven't posted yet, which we will be posting, where we just get into projection a little bit more. Now, originally we reached out to Philip because we were doing a lot of R&D with virtual production, and we were looking at alternatives to very expensive LED volumes. And I was particularly interested in rear projection, as was JP. And so Philip, bless him, got in touch with the fine folks who make OptiBlack, and they actually shipped this rollout to us. We had to figure out a way to kind of mount it because it's just raw straight off the production line. But what it has enabled us to do is some really cool stuff, and we've done some VP work with it as well, which we will also be putting out in due time. So exciting things, lots of exciting things going on. So this OptiBlack is amazing because it's particularly dark. It gives you amazing contrast and shadows, which is often a struggle with rear projection. And so it's kind of the best when it comes to rear projection, and we're very lucky to have it. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and it's really fun to be getting into rear projection. Again, another old school technique, but honestly, I think when it comes to virtual production, I think this could be the way forward in terms of keeping things a little more affordable, but not having to go down the green screen route where you're constantly dealing with spill. Another beautiful benefit of it is that you can focus on it. You obviously need a lot of output for this kind of screen because it's very dark. What's great about our setup is we're shooting long exposures, and so output is not a problem. We're actually just able to use our 10-year-old 1080p projector, and it's more than we need.
After a few days of playing with toys and a lot of sitting around waiting for machines to do our jobs for us, we have everything we need to complete our Lancaster shots.
All right, so we have all of our passes. We are ready to composite. We sort of have composited. So yeah, dude, just talk us through the basic sort of workflow for bringing all of those different passes together and then creating our composite shots.
Yeah, so we composite those in a very simple way, actually, where we are using the lighting change as an additive layer. So more often than not, we'll be using adjustment curves and simple compositing using things like screen mode, which would make any dark area of the frame transparent. And through stacking those layers, we can then build up an ultimate composite to look the way that we want to.
Yeah, and as you say, having all of those image sequences as raw stills, by kind of mixing all of those different light passes together, we actually end up with just so much flexibility post-wise in terms of bringing up levels of the key or the fill or our interactive light and stuff like that. And so we actually end up with, you know, just a phenomenally high dynamic range sequence.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very similar to people that are familiar with rendering out of a CG or 3D graphics applications. So you'd generate things like ambient occlusion or beauty lighting passes, specular highlight passes, things like that. So this is a very real world example of doing exactly that, where we, like you said, we can adjust different values and amounts of shadow intensity by how much we dial up or down that key light pass, for example.
Yeah.
And the interactive light as well, that's a really good technique to use in our case, because we knew we were adding our elements to give that extra finishing touch of trying to marry together those effects.
Obviously, one of the big differences between doing it the way we've done it and doing it in a 3D package and creating it in CG is we are deciding our shots as we do it.
Yeah.
We obviously can't then go, oh, actually, can we reframe? Can we do that? So we're making our choices on set as you would in live action. And I think it's worth noting that we are in a pre-production stage with this project. And so we don't have the live footage. We don't have an edit to work to. Obviously, normally, these kind of shots would be done after principal photography. And really what we're trying to do is put together a couple of shots to give the filmmakers an idea of what we can deliver.
Yeah.
But what's nice is we have a lot of elements.
Yes.
And we've shot from a couple of different angles.
That's right.
Relatively head on, and then one sort of slightly more profile, 3/4 angle. And so the feeling is with what we have, I think we probably don't need to shoot any more elements.
No, we're quite well covered. Yeah. I mean, through the process of doing it the way that we did, we very much built up per take of the elements so that we would increasingly get larger in scale, but also knowing through the act of the previs as well, knowing that those angles that we chose were very, very close to how they kind of had to be to get the shot composition that was ultimately needed to tell that story visually. So yeah, the individual elements that we shot was shot in such a way that it was always going to be an additive process as well. So all these elements can be literally layered upon each other and offset in time to give the desired intensity of the fire and explosion, rather than try and capture everything in one shot, which we did try a couple of, throw everything in at once. But the main benefit of doing things in different passes, if you like, is that you can go in there afterwards and have a lot more editorial control. So yes, we've got more than enough fire and pyro passes.
Yeah, and we shot all of those elements on the Blackmagic Pocket 6K, which gave us as much frame rate as we really thought was necessary and decent dynamic range, and those all came out really nicely.
And the best quality Blackmagic RAW as well, because it's very important for us to get as much details that we could in the highlights and recover those. And it's a really good test actually for any kind of dynamic range of a camera.
Yeah.
Anything to do with fire or explosions, because you're opening it up to such high contrast levels.
Yes.
And it was a really good test, but yeah, it works great.
It did very, very well. And the nature of these hectic, very fast moving, organic, fiery shapes does kind of mean you get quite a lot of license with how you can play with those after the fact.
Well, as we found in our Burning Man episode, when we added some turbulent additional fire to our real stunt, Firewalk from our stuntman. Yes, turbulent fire in particular is so random and so fast and kinetic that it's very easy to have a bit of artistic license in terms of post, and you can loop fire elements and not be able to tell because it's so random and fast. You can also post manipulate the position of a lot of these things, because there's more often than not so many changing variables in wind direction and gravities and all that kind of stuff that you can have a lot of wiggle room in terms of post moving these elements.
Yeah, and we shot our elements at, I think, generally about 50 frames a second.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want to get as much information in those elements as we can. They're very quick events. And we cranked up the shutter speed as well so we can get really sharp images. We did that in the studio where we were allowed to make a mess. But not everyone has access to a studio. But there's quite a lot available online, stock-wise, in terms of elements. Action VFX is a really good place to look. We've had a bit of back and forth with those folks in the past, and we definitely recommend checking them out, right? They've got such a wealth of content.
They
there
do,
as well.
yeah. And I think what sets them apart from a lot of other people is that you can access the raw
material, so much more flexibility in post. And they've got a really good selection of fire and smoke,
including Burning Man elements, which I thought was an excellent addition to the library. No, and it looks fantastic. It's so nice to see those elements on that miniature shot. It just fits really well. And obviously the wing that we built was 1/5 scale approximately, or thereabouts.
A section of it.
So of course, there's a bit of perhaps I suppose with those smaller elements you can create smaller elements and actually sort of scale it more correctly by layering them up as well.
Yeah. Because
we're sort of in that early stage where we're testing, it did also mean we kind of got to have a bit of freedom with the kind of shots that we did.
Yeah.
And I think one of our kind of favourites is the sunset shot that we did, which was just a nice example of using a real practical backlight, sunlight, and we did a number of passes in mind that will agree where our sun's position is. Mm-hmm. We can either find a background that fits to, or shoot something ourselves, or whatever. And what I kind of love about that as well is by doing it in this practical way, I mean, I did bounce light back to obviously fill those shadows, but what you've got there is quite a dark silhouette. And I think we've seen it with CG shots where the danger is the artist will introduce a little too much fill. And it's like, well, but we want to see it. We want to see it. Like, yeah, but is that how it would look? And what's quite nice is we were really like, well, this is how it looked with a big old light behind it. Yeah. And so it's kind of what you get. And I think by not having that option of like, oh, a bit more, and pushing it, I think what we've come out with actually is something that looks very real.
And I think by making those commitments with lighting, especially in that example, is a really good example of where it shows almost the guiding hand of real world physics.
Yes.
So you aren't getting into that territory of impossible photography, which you can so easily do, like you mentioned in CG, where you do want to see everything because you've spent hundreds of hours modeling this thing, you want to see it. And what's really nice about having it locked down more towards the physical nature of real world photography is that your hand is kind of guided to only really have the ability to manipulate it so far in post. So yes, you can bring up shadows, yes, you can bring up or recover from highlights, but ultimately you are staring into a very high contrast scene that looks the way it kind of would.
Yeah, absolutely. And the background that we used there, we're kind of throwing that in as just a demonstrative element as part of this test. And there's different ways we could maybe approach it when we come to do the final shots for the film. I had a thought that we could send up a drone as well, potentially, and see, if we could keep it all really real world and look to using a kind of a drone shot. The main shots that we want that this is for really take place at night.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of debatable really how much you'd see.
I think one of the ideas that we may be exploring in the future of this particular project is seeing if we can incorporate our original burning city plate and have that as a texture for the background. But as mentioned before, primarily it's going to be a nighttime kind of setting to a lot of these shots.
Yeah, and then I think to add a little bit of realism, a feeling like we're up there, super high up. You've obviously added a bit of camera shake.
Yeah,
and then some particles, some kind of wisps of cloud, as it were, really kind of thin stuff. And I think all of that really helps.
Yeah, definitely with the raw motion control moves that we captured, we very much erred on the safe side because we were still exploring the mechanical setup that we had done, which is pretty much the first time that we had to test it out. So any kind of post move that you might put into the footage just takes that edge out of that kind of mechanical smoothness.
It's just being too perfect.
And just give that impression that we're either in a chase plane or a neighbouring aircraft as part of that squadron, perhaps, that's got this exterior view onto the craft. And it's also down to the potential period of the project that you're working on. A lot of this kind of imagery, wartime scenario, a lot of imagery that's been generated even in, feature films has been either heavily inspired by actual stock footage or real archival footage. There's a visual language that sometimes is good to tap into, because even though it might not be as technically proficient as you could supposedly shoot something like that, it kind of harkens back to a period that you're visually familiar with. So if you've watched classic films like Battle of Britain or The Dam Busters, you'd be very familiar with the kind of compositions and shots, and famously where Star Wars got a lot of their dogfight inspiration and the kinetic moves of that. A lot of that was almost a documentary feel to that.
Yeah.
It just gave that extra layer of visual language that I think helped sell the shots.
Definitely, definitely. And just an inherent dynamism with following something rather than something flying perfectly into a composition. We actually have recently created an article for Blackmagic for 3D World, and I think it's available now, actually. It's online. It's also in print. That's right. And we go through the whole process of this shoot, of post-production. So that's something y'all could go and check out. And the GoFundMe campaign is still live. They're still raising funds for the project. So if you would like to support it, do go there. I think that's all from us. Remember, if you want to support our channel, you can head over to our Patreon page. You can follow us on social media if it doesn't make you sad. And you can keep up to date with everything that we're up to and when we're next posting. See you soon.